On this day, one thinks of a phenomenon of grace, little known, but worth meditating upon in the context of the annals of the saints. It's Clelia Barbieri. Her brief life edified everyone who had any contact whatsoever with this pure virgin. She herself was born into a poor family of hemp farmers. When she was 8, her father died during a cholera epidemic. Her mother, her 2 sisters, and her 75-year-old grandfather were faced with a difficult future. But this little damsel was a great consolation. She assisted her mother by learning to use the loom and to weave hemp. Even at this age, she was devout and learned all she could about the faith from her mother and her parish priest. After she had learned to read and write, her favorite book was her catechism, because it taught her about God and encouraged her in the way of virtue. Her biographer reports that she was regarded as a little angel. People would simply say, the little saint. After receiving the sacrament of confirmation, she was determined to become a saint. At the age of 11, she was already wholly dedicated to Christ. When she was 15, Father Guidi, her parish priest, formed a group, the Christian Doctrine Workers, a group of young teachers, and this little angel was part of that. She taught children their catechism and ran a small primary school in which the students were only a few years younger than herself. Eventually, both men and women attended her classes along with her children. Having pledged herself to our Lord, she refused a number of proposals of marriage, and is believed to have taken the vows of chastity, obedience, and poverty under the guidance of Father Guidi. When she was almost 21, she inspired a small group of young ladies of similar ideals to join her in the performance of good works. After acquiring a small house near a church in Les Boudriers, they began living a community life, but they retained their secular status throughout Clelia's lifetime. They devoted their energies to the teaching of Christian doctrine, to sewing, to aiding the sick, and to providing every manner of charitable assistance to those in need. Many unusual things began to take place. When there was no food in the house, the community prayed. The doorbell rang, and food was provided. Praying to St. Francis of Paula, the patron of the group, was also effective in obtaining bread, flour, wine, and other staples. Clelia seems to have been blessed with other mystical favors, as was demonstrated when she was given a quantity of apples from the mother of Anna Forni, a member of the community. Clelia placed them on a table and divided them into 3 parts, saying, "I will keep these you picked in your orchard, and those you found on the ground, but I cannot accept this 3rd group, because you did not come by them honestly." In fact, the woman had gathered some of the apples from the trees on someone else's property. In addition, Mother Clelia, as she was then known, cured many people by using the oil from the lamp that burned before the portrait of St. Francis of Paula. One day, while standing at the window of the community house, she pointed to a nearby field and prophesied, "Do you see that field next to the church? There the new house will rise. I will no longer be here. You will increase in number and will spread out on the plains and in the mountains to work in God's vineyard. Many will come with carriages and horses." All of this was eventually realized. Clelia died of tuberculosis on this very day, the 13th of July, 1870. And she was only 23 years old. Her last words were prophetic. "Be brave, because I am going to paradise, but I shall always remain with you too. I shall never abandon you. She also said that all those who belonged to her community would be saved. With regard to this promise, I shall not abandon you, it was to be realized in a dramatic way. One year after her death, the very day, while the sisters were at prayer in the chapel, the sisters declared this. Suddenly, there was the sound of a high-pitched, harmonious, and heavenly voice that accompanied the singing in the choir. At times, it sang solo. At others, it harmonized with the choir, moving across from right to left. Sometimes it passed close by the ears of one or other of the sisters. The joy which it brought filled our hearts with a happiness impossible to put into words. This wasn't of this world. We lived that day in paradise. From time to time, one had to leave the room. The emotion that we experienced was so strong that it left you breathless until one had to call out, "Enough, dear Lord, enough!" The miraculous event dismissed all thought of their night's rest. Instead, since the Blessed Sacrament was not then reserved in their chapel, they decided to pass the night adoring the Blessed Sacrament in a nearby church. They again declared, "But how great was our surprise when we realized that the voice had followed us and accompanied us as we began our prayers." Clelia's voice prayed with them until dawn. Since that day, she has never left them, joining them in the most diverse surroundings and conditions. At the time of her death, there were only 10 girls who lived in the community. After the rule of the order was approved by the Vatican, more members joined the community, many being inspired by the voice of the Holy Foundress. After the Second World War, there were 236 members. During the 1950s, the sisters numbered almost 300. In recent years, the flourishing order maintains over 35 institutions throughout Italy. Then mission fields beckoned. Houses of the order were opened in Kerala, India, and in Tanzania, Africa, with a number of the local young women joining in practicing the ideals of the Holy Foundress. In the communities of Usokam and Vadakankeri, the sisters hear Clelia's voice, which sings and prays with them in Swahili and Malayalam. When they pray in Latin, Clelia prays in Latin as well. During the past 125 years since her death, Clelia's heavenly voice has been periodically heard in the houses of the order, especially at Le Boudrier. The voice is heard accompanying the sisters in their hymns, in religious readings, and in their conversations. It is also heard accompanying the priest during the celebration of Holy Mass and during the sermons. Even in the parish churches, it is heard lingering among the faithful. The Mother Superior of the Order in Le Boudrier stated to the author in 1970, "This prodigious gift stimulates us to do well, increases our faith, is a relief to the trials of life, and gives us a great desire for heaven." In a more recent letter received before publication of this book, says the author, the Mother Provincial of the Order, Sister Silvana Magnani, confirms that the prodigy is still taking place. She writes, "The voice accompanies us in our prayers, which are in Italian, and with prayers that are in diverse languages. In Tanzania, where we live a mission, the voice speaks in the language of Swahili. In India, the language is Malayalam. The voice has been described as one unlike any other of this earth, always sweet and gentle. It is sometimes sad. Not only is it frequently accompanied by angelic strains, but is itself often transformed into the purest celestial music. Many witnesses of unquestionable integrity, including her original companions, various superiors, sisters of the order, priests and lay workers in the order's hospitals, have adequately testified that they have heard the voice. Moreover, many witnesses have given sworn testimony before ecclesiastical tribunals who investigated the prodigy prior to Clelia's solemn beatification on October the 27th, 1968, and before her canonization on April the 9th, 1989. The vocal manifestations confirm the protective promise made by Clelia to her companions before her death. Be brave, because I am going to paradise, but I shall always remain with you too. I shall never abandon you. Her biographer reports in a recent book, and St. Clelia continues to let us hear her voice like that first anniversary of her death. Her nuns, together with many others, continue to hear her voice, which prays, sings, and intercedes. It is a voice full of happiness when announcing good news for her family, the church, and the world. It is full of sadness when suffering is nearby. It is always calm and encouraging, a true sign that God never leaves us. At Les Boudriers, in the sanctuary of the saint, people are always kneeling before the beautifully crafted urn that contains her relics. It is from there that blessings have proceeded throughout Italy and the world. A recent testimony indicates that it is still regularly heard all the time in the houses of her order. A young girl who might be moved by divine grace to consecrate her virginity to the Lord might do well to think of the example of this Holy Virgin, now patron saint of catechists. For her congregation is obviously protected, and the promise that those who enter it will not be lost is not indifferent either. There are places on earth very close to heaven, and to have a foundress of this kind is a massive grace for a young virgin who would give herself entirely to Jesus.